that down, then we'll be ready to go. I'd like to call the Board of Directors' regular meeting tonight to order. If you will stand and pledge with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you will silence phones, we'd appreciate it. Celebrating success.
Hillary first. Scott's not here yet. Here he comes.
Oh, okay.
Hillary Sense, if you could come up forward with Daryl. So Hillary's been with us for 6 months? How many months? 9 months? 4 months, a brief amount of time. So we received this from a property owner, and the property owner asked that their name not get shared. Is that correct? The property owner wrote, "I have golfed for 32 years, and now at the age of 76, I have seen a steady decline in the distance of my drives, losing over 40 pounds this year. This last 7 years, I have my knee replaced, has probably contributed to this, not to say my advancing age. When I watch golf tournaments on TV, I have paid attention to the commercials promoting shiny new drivers. If I buy a new one, I'm sure I can get an additional 25 yards in my drive. This prompted me to go to Tanyard Creek Golf Shop, where I met Hillary, who is one of our golf pros. The club I wanted cost $525, but I thought it would be worth it. She measured my swing speed, distance in my old clubs, and then compared it to the shiny new one. And this, we used the flight scope that we purchased last year. She then told me that I should stick with my old club because there was no noticeable difference between the two. She told me this knowing that she would miss out on a sale. I want to give her a shout out."
Very good.
That's sweet. Oh, that's so nice.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
None of us signed that, though. It could have applied to all of us.
That shows fantastic character. And it is in the best interest of our customer, our member, our property owner. So I really applaud you for that. Next up, we have Faith. Come on up with Scott.
Very good. Hey. Very good.
You have tables right now?
I do.
We'll do this fast then, okay? Bella Vista Community Television had a luncheon in the Vista Room on February 13th. I would like to recognize Faith for her spectacular service. She handled every table with ease without never showing stress. Her smile and positive attitude made every attendee smile. I had to laugh with her when she said she did not live in Bella Vista and had no clue who Tom Judson was. I just read that. Thank you to Tommy Lee and Josh for their roles in making, Jerry, I think she meant, in making the luncheon a memorable time for our volunteers. And this was actually submitted by Becky.
I did? I don't remember saying that.
But you did an outstanding job, and I was there, and I enjoyed lunch. So congratulations. We really appreciate it. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you much.
David, did you get your chicken now tonight?
You might want to bring it fast next time. Okay, moving along to approve the work session minutes. Do we have a motion? Do you have a motion from the table for the minutes?
So move.
Second?
Second.
I would like to make a correction on the minutes. For some reason, it said Jim Abrahamson adjourned the meeting, and I have no idea why, because I was here. So I think it was me that adjourned rather than Jim, unless you wanted out real bad, Jim. So with that correction, any other discussion? All in favor? As amended. As amended. Any opposed? Okay. The regular board meeting of last month, do we have a motion for that one, for the minutes? A second?
Second.
Discussion. If not, can we have a vote on accepting the minutes as written? Any negative? Okay. Thank you very much. Ready for the election?
Next up, we have the Elections Committee, and they are going to perform the lottery, and the order in which the names are drawn are how their names will appear on the ballot and will appear on all election material.
As well as meet the candidate?
Everything. They will go,
Okay.
everything will stay in this exact same order.
Okay. First out.
First one is, I think it's Tia Bidwell.
Tia Bidwell.
He's down here.
Steve McKee. Bruce Portillo. Pat Lowry. Jerry Barron Jr. Deborah Emmons. And John Nuttall.
Okay.
Want to remind the board that our Meet the Candidate Forum will be on March 19th at 6 o'clock
At Reardon Hall.
Reardon Hall.
at Reardon Hall.
At Reardon Hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks
much,
a lot.
Tom.
You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Tom, will the election site be up on the website soon?
I think they're still ironing out the, I think they're still ironing out the profiles and getting those in. Those have not all been, they've been submitted, but they haven't all been formatted by the marketing department, so, soon.
Okay. Ready for the advisories? Lakes Committee. Do we have somebody from the Lakes Committee?
No, nobody from the Lakes Committee.
Okay. Recreation?
One
Go
item that
ahead.
was covered at the Lake Committee of note is that we received our third test of the lakes, of Lake Ann and Lake Brittany, and they continue to show no concern regarding their proximity to the fire. We will continue to do that testing for the duration. And the city was kind enough, we sent them the reports and they posted it to their website, their webpage for the fire. So that was one item that was covered during the meeting.
Does Windsor Lake close today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay. So they'll fill back up as soon as we get rain rather than snow and ice and,
Yeah, it's all contingent upon the weather.
okay. Recreation.
Gary is under the weather today, and he wanted me to cover a couple things. He wanted to mention that the gun range, the fourth trap location is almost ready and should be completed by May 1 or earlier. The Valentine's dance at Reardon Hall sold 174 tickets, which is great. And Debbie mentioned that this coming weekend, next weekend, the 9th, starting at 9:30, we're going to have the meet and greet. And I wouldn't be surprised if she has another 50 attendees, as she normally does. And she's gone forward and set the calendar for the remainder of the year.
Tom,
Golf.
question.
Go ahead.
Where's that meet and greet going to be held? Is that going
In
to
the
be?
Vista room.
In the
Vista
Vista room? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Jason?
Good evening.
Good evening.
This month's golf committee meeting, just a few points. Rounds are down last month, obviously due to weather. The 2019 new local rules are now available in all the pro shops. The 2019 Golf Expo will be March 5th at Reardon Hall from 5 to 7. We are going to be forming a subcommittee within the golf committee to focus on sponsorships, area sponsorships for the POA sanctioned events that go on. We're hoping to manage the sponsorships better, so there's not so much confusion like there has been in the past. Allen's, for example, grocery store, really get him involved and make sure the appropriate people are recognized. Is that not on?
It's on, dude.
That one works. My wife doesn't probably appreciate that. She says I'm loud enough. Our committee member, hey, there it is. Committee member Steve McKee presented some ideas on how to encourage play for the rare golfer. Daryl and his team, operations team, are going to be talking about some of the ideas that Steve came to put together, and we're going to have a follow-up discussion next month's meeting. We voted to change the meeting time back to 4 o'clock, a month earlier than what we usually do, so next March 13th meeting will be at 4 o'clock here in the boardroom. The strategic committee did not meet this month. They're going to meet in March, and the focus on that is, actually Susan's here, is going to be presenting the longest day, the Alzheimer's, and we're going to try to get the committee to, the strategic committee to go out to each one of their committees and get a lot more community involvement that way. So that's it.
Am I correct that the group leader meeting is at 4 o'clock on the day of the Golf Fest?
Yeah, they're having a pre-meeting. Yes, ma'am, I
At 4
believe so.
o'clock?
Yes,
And
that's
then they'll be
correct.
ready for the
For the
people that
expo.
come in at
And
before
sign up for
5.
the groups. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you. Community involvement. You have that one too?
Yeah, Dylan asked me to cover for him also. They did not have a formal meeting. They did not have a quorum, but they talked about some of their goals for this year, and they're working on finding additional volunteers to be part of the committee. So if anybody is of any interest, if they could contact me directly. We mentioned at last week's meeting that Leah Bush, our corporate secretary, has decided to move back home to Kansas City. Temporarily, we have Roxy Gones is our assistant corporate secretary. Roxy over there. So if anybody has any interest, they can contact me, and I will put them in contact with Dylan, or they can contact Dylan directly if they'd like.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about advisory groups? If not, we'll move to financial report.
We'll start with a pre-audit income statement for the POA and water. This was the 12 months ended December 28th, year-to-date. The last time we brought a report, it was still preliminary. We were still posting. This is what we sent to the auditors. This is what will be audited on.
I got it. Sorry.
These are pre-audit 2018 financials, and we plan to review these numbers in greater detail at our annual meeting in May after the yearly audit has been completed, but we're just going to hit the high points tonight. Starting with the POA, total income for the POA was $17,388,000 against a budgeted amount of $18,065,000, or negative to budget $676,000. Cost of goods, $1,054,000 against $1,099,000. These are in millions, $45,000 variance positive. Gross profit, $16,334,000 against $16,966,000, or a negative of $632,000 because of the income at the top. And operating expenses, $18,341,000 against $18,283,000, or negative $57,000, not very much change. And EBITDA for the POA, 2007 negative actual against budgeted 1,317, or a negative 698, again, mainly for that income. And then the water utility, same time frame, pre-audit. Total income, $8,649,000 against budgeted $7,815,000, or positive to budget $833,000. Cost of goods, $2,409 against $2,330, a negative $79. And gross profit, $6,240,000 against budgeted $5,485,000, or a positive $754,000. Operating expenses, $3,124,000 against budgeted $2,840,000, or a negative to budget $284,000. And EBITDA, $3,116,000 against budgeted $2,645,000, or a positive $471,000. And that is December's numbers, and now we're going to go through January, 1 month ending 2019, year to date. The POA, going to talk a little more about the detail. Actual is $1,929,000 against budgeted $2,061,000, or a negative to budget of $132,000. And again, we're seeing golf. The annuals were not purchased as they have been in some of the prior years because they can purchase them anytime. They don't have that February deadline like we used to have. And also weather-related has already been talked about in the golf committee. Cell tower rents, we got a $25 or $25,000 pickup here. It was budgeted to come in February. It came in a little early. That's $25,000 positive. And then the transfer fees were still high, $21,000. Looking at the prior year comparisons, golf down again, year to year. Annuals and weather-related, again, $136,000. Stump dump is down because we weren't collecting stump dump in 19. That's down $19,000. And food and beverage was up, mainly because of the Lake Point and Country Club, $25,000, and transfer fees, $21,000. Even though Lake Point, it was there prior year, but it wasn't there this year because it was closed due to the getting ready for the new menu and stuff. But the Country Club picked up more, still by $25,000, and transfer fees, $21,000. Pat, did you have a question?
Dwayne, could you, I don't understand transfer fees.
Transfer fees are when people buy property, membership transfer fees, and we transfer that from one owner to another. We get the money for the fee. That's the fee to do all the record keeping, which that's something that you're very familiar with as far as property transfers.
There's a $150 charge for that, and actually Roxy's the one that processes all those. So figure that we're up by $21,000. So Roxy was rather busy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Moving down to the next item, operating expenses. It was budgeted to be $1,499,000. It was actually $1,349,000. Positive $150,000, positive to budget. Labor was $54,000 of that, all across the divisions. Maintenance and repair, $23,000. Maybe delays right now. We're not calling that totally a savings. Equipment and tools, $15,000. Training, $10,000. Postage, $11,000. And the miscellaneous small amounts all across the divisions. 1 month is hard to make any kind of comparison though, so this is just 1 month running. Operating expenses are $7,000 positive. EBITDA, $18,000 better than budget. In prior year, negative $124,000. This is just 1 month. Water utility.
Sorry.
No problem. Gross profit is down $3,000, just right about budget, mainly usage. And then compared to prior year, it's down $46,000. We had more water sold last year, and it was water, and also investments were higher last year. Or investments were higher this year because we had a lot of loss on where we haven't actually sold the investment, but the market moved. Okay. Operating expenses are down negative $18,000, and that's mainly maintenance and repairs, and that's also true in the comparison. The negative $25,000 on the next slide, that's also maintenance and repair related in our system. EBITDA, therefore, on the budget is down $21,000. Prior year is down $71,000. That concludes my report. Any other questions?
Tell them about the cell tower.
Yes, the cell tower rent, it came in, or the cell tower sale actually happened this week. We got the money this Monday. It was $1,069,000. We had budgeted to happen in March. It actually happened in February, so it'll be on our next report.
And it was budgeted for what?
It was budgeted for, I believe, 1,029,000, something like that, but we got it at 1,069,000, a little higher than budget.
Any other questions? Are the water meters changed over, or we still have some to go?
We're done.
We're done? Okay.
Now it's just they're replacing new homes and any ones that would normally break. I mean, there's going to be a certain, with 13,700, you're going to have some ones that need to be replaced. They got a rock in it and so forth. So,
Okay.
but the main project is done. We'll be wrapping it up, all the bills and everything over the next couple months.
Okay, very good. Any questions regarding budget? If not, we'll move on. Last month's open forum, there were 6 or 7 people who talked, and most of it was regarding the fire, the stump dump fire. And we'll open it up to open forum. Remember to state your name, your address, and please limit it to 3 minutes, if you would, please.
And I'd like to jump in. I don't know if we are or are not going to have any questions regarding the stump dump fire. Just recognize that with a lawsuit, with the lawsuit at hand, our ability to answer some questions would be fairly limited. We will answer any questions that we can, but we also don't want to jeopardize our position in a court of law down the road. So I hope that people are respectful, that there's some questions that we may have to defer on.
Okay. Open forum.
Hi, Susan Nuttall, 40 Pimlico. I just have a question that maybe, this is probably a question for Dwayne. On looking at the consolidated balance sheet for January 31st, the capital projects, work in progress, is $5,300,000. Is that, are there any big hitters in there? I'm surprised it was so large, I guess.
They're the largest one probably is the water meter replacement. It's,
Oh, okay.
it's the biggest one in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Deborah Emmons.
Pull it down. Just pull it down. There you go.
Deborah Emmons, 4 Brittany Lane, POA, BOD, 2019. Candidate. First of all, the issues, I had a suggestion for the POA.
Can you speak directly into the microphone?
Absolutely.
We
How's
can
that?
hear you here,
Can
but at
can you
home they
hear me now?
can't. Yeah.
Oh, good.
That's fantastic.
Okay, okay. I had a suggestion for the board. Sometimes you get a lot of people up here asking a bazillion different questions and expecting an answer like that. And I would love to see it assigned, like for me, if I was asked a question, I would like to have the opportunity to research and answer to the question instead of having to have a snap answer. To me, that makes more sense. So if we could assign maybe a person that has a direct knowledge of that area, such as a stump dump or a medical legal issue. In my case, it would be medical legal issues. So that person would better be informed without doing a whole lot of research and background.
What we try to do, Deborah, is if somebody can't answer it right there at the time, we research it, and the
Right.
next month I will address any that weren't
Yeah.
answered.
And that I'm aware of. A lot
Okay.
of people, get on social media and say, well, you know how that goes. Okay.
And some of them just take a little bit of research.
Yeah, exactly.
And I responded directly to Joy on an issue that she brought up last month or the month before. And we exchanged
Right.
emails, and I was able, it's not in a public forum and not everybody hears it,
Right.
but I wanted to get back to her as soon as possible.
Well, and I think that's a prudent way to
Yeah.
handle a situation instead of somebody expecting an answer right now, uninformed,
And Dwayne tends to bring quite a number of financials with him. Not always, but he does, and often what he'll be able to do is we'll be able to do some quick research while
Right.
the question is. But sometimes we can't answer the questions, and as Ruth said, we have to defer to the next month.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
I think that's a prudent way to approach it. I wanted to give you guys a shout out and a woohoo for the positive outlook that you are presenting moving forward in the community. Tom, the little blurb that you had about, I forget what it was, something that's real debatable right now, and it wasn't the stump dump, it was something else, but you had a really succinct explanation of what was going on in a positive direction moving forward in the community, so thank you for that.
Great.
Let's see. Oh, I wanted to remind everybody about the public forum that's coming up. Thank you so much for organizing that about the Blowing Springs to Metfield concrete that's coming up. The discussion is going to be on March 12th at 6:30 at the
Cooper Elementary School.
Yes, right. So that's great because I think that's what people are asking for, and it's really great to hear that you guys are responding to the community and their wishes. The gun classes are coming up, and I'm excited about that. There's a low enrollment on that, so I'm just here to say that the safety gun class is going to be starting on 3/12/19, and then there's a concealed carry class as well.
Can we wrap this up real quickly? Thank you.
Huh? Oh, I'm almost done. Blah, blah, blah. That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We
guys.
appreciate it.
Enjoy
you.
the muffins.
We appreciate it. Anyone else for open forum?
Good evening, everyone. Kevin Dooley, 122 Leicester Drive. And this was touched on just a moment ago, but I just want to make sure that everyone in the audience and those watching at home know that the board is proposing building a paved trail. This trail would be 10 feet wide and approximately 2.2 miles in length, and it would connect the Metfield area to Blowing Springs. At last week's City Council work session, Mayor Christie also told me that the board was planning an arboretum at that same location. The board hasn't mentioned that. And Mayor Christie also said that the source of the funding was going to be the Walton Family Foundation. The board has declined to verify that the Waltons are actually paying for this. And I also want to let everybody know that that the board, in cooperation with the City of Bella Vista and Northwest Arkansas Trailblazers, are holding a community input meeting at Cooper Elementary on March 12th at 6:30. Now, I kind of expect to hear repeatedly at this meeting that the path is for the children, so the children can ride their bikes to school. And I'm afraid that if you express any concerns about the path, well, that means you don't like children, right? And I think we need to remember that this is our property. We own it, and we should decide what happens with it. And I believe we're going to have to insist that the board recognize our right to vote on this. I'm concerned that the board is going to say we don't have any right. They've done this with the previous trails, and we're going to have to push back on that. And I'm afraid the board is going to say it's too expensive to have a vote. And we're going to have to tell them $40,000 is worth it in order for us to protect our right to vote. And just as a reminder, the board has spent nearly $14 million of our dollars over the past few years. So $40,000 to protect our rights is not very much. So I hope to see all of you at the meeting. Bring your friends. Cooper Elementary, March 12th, 6:30. Thank you. Thanks to the board.
Kevin,
Yes, ma'am.
the one thing I think you're missing is that you did vote. You vote
For
every
you.
May for this board.
The reason I talk about this tonight is because so many people didn't know about the trails. I mean, blame that on communication, blame that on people not paying attention. But I just want to make sure everybody knows. Did I interrupt you, Mary?
No.
Okay.
Kevin,
Thanks,
one
everyone.
other thing. You asked that question last week, and also whether it was last week or the week before.
It was at the work session last week.
Previously to that, Steve McKee asked us a very specific question, and in both cases I said, we're going to hold off. What I don't want to do, we're having a meeting so we can present all the information at one time. And so I can tell you there is a slide in the presentation about funding and where it's coming from. And that slide was written before you asked your question.
Okay.
But I think that what you need to do is you need to let us have the meeting.
On March 12th, you mean?
Yeah.
I felt pretty odd, though, to hear this information at a city council meeting. You know, maybe that was, maybe Mayor Christie spoke out of turn, I don't know, but that felt kind of weird, like it felt like you're keeping it a big secret or something.
I can't control what Mayor Christie says, I can only
Well,
control what I say.
Sure.
But,
Yeah, and I'm just relating what I heard from Mayor Christie.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to avoid is one question leads to another. Come to the meeting.
I will, and everybody else will too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other open forum?
Yes, I have just a couple of.
Okay.
I am Joy Sawyer on Dillow Drive. Okay, so Mr. Judson and I spoke briefly at the community meeting about the question was asked, would there be a sign placed at Metfield Park to warn people about the air from the stump dump? And living exactly a half a mile from that and about a half a mile from the Metfield Park, I know that the smell there is also very strong at times. And Mr. Judson's response was that he would let the city, okay, do those signs. Well, the city doesn't own Metfield Park, and I have a real concern. The POA is already under a lawsuit, and that's all of us. That's not just you guys. You know, that's all of us really, because we are the ones that are paying the dues and paying the attorney's fees, essentially. So my concern is that if the POA doesn't step up ahead of the city and put a sign at that park, that you're making yourselves liable for not informing the public that there is a problem there. And that I mean, the park was very expensive, and I know that. And I take my grandkids there to play. So, you know, it's not that I just want it closed, but I'm just very concerned that some little child is going to be out there playing and is going to get very sick. And it's going to be due to that smoke. And the city does not own that park. The POA owns the park. So I feel like, and I expressed to Mr. Judson, I wouldn't rent the pavilion. I wouldn't take one dime until that stump dump's cleared up. That's up to you guys. It just doesn't, to me, you know, without warning the public and then to charge, just seems to me like that's not a very smart thing to do. People don't have to have a good reason to file a lawsuit. They just have to have a hungry attorney. So, and that's going to cost us money, even if it's frivolous, even if it doesn't go anywhere. And a sign would be a lot less expensive.
I understand. So we are having our attorney review that request, and we have not yet received a response yet.
Okay, I'm just going to. You're the POA, and I'm just going to say that I hope that you will call that attorney first thing in the morning and say, hey, we need a decision. Don't sit on this. It's going to warm up in just the next few weeks. Spring break is right around the corner, and there are going to be kids out there playing. And I, for one, am very concerned about the health of the children and the elderly in this community that are breathing that stuff. I mean, I know what it's doing to me. You know, we can't even go and sit on our deck anymore. So, you know, I mean, I know what it's doing to me, and I'm just very concerned, and I wanted to make that concern public to you guys. I'll table my question about the trails until March the 12th at 6:30. Is that election day, by the way? I mean, that's a voting day, so we're having a public meeting on a voting day? That's an interesting, because we're voting for the Benton County tax or whatever on that day, right? Or Isn't that the same day? Do the polls
We've
close
pro-
at 7?
We've provided you with a month's notice to arrange your schedule.
Well, I mean,
Yep.
I'm just saying, I think that's a weird day to hold it.
It was the day that the auditorium was available.
Okay. And I've also noticed when I left my house today on Trafalgar, the burn ban sign is up. But it's been raining for like a month at least. So why do we have a burn ban?
That is a
Well-
city issue. We have no control over it.
Okay, so you talked to Mayor Christie daily about the stump dump, but you don't know why there's a burn ban? So if it's in the paper, you can't tell me because I don't have the paper with me. Can you tell me what the paper says? Oh, okay. All right. I'll talk to the city then. I feel like that's a further punishment for us if I can't go out and roast marshmallows if I want to.
Excuse me, please, thank you. Okay, anybody else that, open forum? Go ahead.
Dennis Hobson on
Wow. Just take it off, just take it off.
Fort Tiverton. I've always been curious I've listened to certain matters. I've only been to a few of these meetings. It'll be to a bunch more, but
Can you take the microphone off and speak right into it so that the people at home can hear it?
I don't want to speak too loud.
Okay.
But I'm just curious, is there any liaison on certain matters that go on here between the entities in this city? You've got Cooper, you've got the POA, and you've got the city. So my question is just real simple. Is there any liaison that goes on between you guys at all? I've heard questions that can't be answered because it's a city. I've heard, do you guys ever sit down together with long-range plans, agendas, bike trails? What's the answer to that?
So, answer to your question is, the mayor and I speak on, by and large, a daily basis. We share a lot of information, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer city-oriented questions on their behalf, because if I get it wrong, then I'm effectively speaking on behalf of the city. We were able to answer the question because the issue was handled in the newspaper. But as for liaising, the mayor and I speak very often. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it does in a sense, but what I'm talking about is, as it relates to us, the people that live here, and as it comes to fruition, it seems like I've listened to, we don't know, it's the city, and I think a lot of issues just on a basic level, we don't need to know everything that goes on in every meeting, but just some exchange, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, we work as closely as with the city as possible. They recognize that, Roxy, I could get these figures wrong, but we receive about 20,000 calls per year and about 25,000 emails per year to our member services, and half of those have nothing to do with the POA. And so we're constantly sending people, unfortunately you have to talk to the city on that, and we try and give them the right person, call this person, this is their number, so we try and lead them along, but we also can't speak on their behalf. So we try and coordinate as much as possible. That's one of the reasons, for example, with the issue regarding the Metfield connector, is the mayor is going to be there, and NWA Trailblazers. On March 9th, when we have the new resident meeting, the mayor and I sit side by side and we answer questions. So we try and work together as much as possible. But also, I'm going to go back to, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the fire department. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the city. That's their job, because maybe they have a burn ban in place for a reason that I'm not aware of, and I would hate to give wrong information.
Okay.
Excuse me, also, Tom and the mayor hold, how frequent are your meetings, Tom, the joint meetings that you have with the mayor? Every 6 months, or?
Oh, you mean the new resident meeting? That's every 3 months?
No, I mean the one that we have where you and the mayor address the community together,
That's special town hall meetings.
the
We have
special
not had.
town halls.
Yeah, we haven't had one for a little while.
Yeah, but those are, we might want to look at, making sure that that's a scheduled meeting because I think it can be very valuable just to hear, you and the mayor addressing issues before the community.
They do that four times a year at the
4 times a year, is it?
One way to handle it is, it's like, I worked on a fire department my whole career, and we had a public information officer. And as things came to fruition, or however you want to call it, bike trails, golf, whatever it is, basically, they would let that information out when you're not stepping on anybody's toes, but it's just letting the citizens, the people that live here, know what's going on.
So now, do you?
Read the newspaper, yes.
Well, no, I was going to say that, is if you go to the city's website, so Cassie Lapp is their marketing person, and Kim Carlson is the POA's marketing person. So if you sign up for the city's email, their newsletter, and if you sign up for the POA's newsletter, you're going to get a lot of information on a consistent basis. So I would encourage you to sign up for both of those. And also go onto the website. So if you want information regarding the Trafalgar Road fire, the city has set up a specific web page that is dedicated just to that. And we've stated numerous times in our newsletter and so forth, and in these meetings, that we're the POA. What we didn't want to do is have two competing and separate web pages, one on the city and one on the POA. So what we do is everything goes to the city, and when I need information posted regarding the Trafalgar Road fire, I send it to Cassie, and she posts it. So there's one-stop shopping where you can go and get that information.
So she is your
She's the city's.
she's the city.
But we work closely together.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I've sent her many things that I've asked her to post, and they've accommodated me every single time I've asked them to.
Okay, but just answer that one question, is basically there's no actual liaison between the entities then?
Bella Vista is very unique in the idea that there are 3 separate entities within Bella Vista.
Okay.
Each of them have their own responsibilities. And I think that's kind of what we're missing here. The city has certain responsibilities, the POA has certain responsibilities, and the ACC has certain responsibilities. So we don't have crossover. It's either ours or theirs or ACC's.
But you don't talk to each other.
We do talk to each
Yes,
other.
so
We do
I
talk
said
to each other.
that I speak to the mayor on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
Okay.
I don't think there's any need to have a liaison, that I go to my liaison and say, talk to the city's liaison who's going to talk to the mayor. I just call the mayor directly.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Other
your
open
time.
forum. Other open forum. If not, let's move on to Rules and Regulations Committee, and we have several proposed changes this evening. The first one is modification of policy 1.10, Board of Director Ethics. And this would be the second reading.
You.
Go ahead.
So, as Ruth mentioned, this is the second reading of policy 1.10. There is no change from last month's meeting, so if there are no questions about it, we'll ask for a motion to approve the policy 1.10 on a second reading. David's the first.
Second.
Okay, Jim
Discussion.
second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Go ahead with 1.12.
Okay, policy 1.12. This is also for a second reading, disciplinary procedure for directors. Again, this is the second reading, no changes from the last month's reading. Pat?
I move we accept this change as indicated here.
Pat moves to accept on the second reading. Mary,
Second.
any discussion?
Discussion on this one?
All in favor? Any opposed? 1.03.2 is a slight change to the election committee schedule. As you noticed tonight, they drew names at this meeting. Last month's meeting was disclosure of who was running for the board. So this change to to this policy would allow that to occur in one meeting. They wouldn't have to come back for a second month to announce the order of how they're drawn. So they would announce the names of the people who are running, and then they would draw for, just like happened tonight, but all in one meeting.
That's the only change?
Yes, and this is a first reading.
Okay.
There's an additional change on page 44 of your board packet. We're just trying to add a little bit more clarity to the one lot, one vote rule. We're not changing anything in the governing documents, nor are we changing legal precedent on this. We're just trying to write it in, we'll say, common English instead of legalese to make it a little bit more understandable. But while the words have been changed a little bit, the meaning behind it has not changed.
It's just to bring it to the front again.
Yeah.
Okay. And that will take place the 31st for members in good standing for the ballots?
Correct.
Okay, 31st of March. Okay.
This was discussed at the Rules and Regs Committee, and they voted to bring this forward to the full board for a vote. So,
This is first reading, and it needs 2 readings.
yep.
Okay. We have a motion.
I move that we accept the modifications to policy 1.03.2.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? David?
On number 10, where the changes are there about each member, blah, blah, blah. Ballots may be cast by mail, electronically, or in person at the annual meeting.
If you're there by a half hour before the meeting starts at
Do we
5:30.
do we need to say that?
Yeah.
1/2 hour prior to?
Yeah, if you look at last year's ballot, which you may or may not still have, and the information, we've always had, well, I don't know about always, but we've had it in there the last few years where we explain the 3 different ways that you can vote. The cutoff time is, the annual meeting starts at 6 o'clock. The cutoff time is 5:30. What ends up happening is you walk in. We received 1 walk-in ballot last year. You walk up and a person from the elections committee is there. They actually scan it, send it to the tabulation firm. The tabulation firm incorporates that vote. They confirm that they have not already voted, and then they tabulate it, and that vote gets counted, but it has to be 30 minutes prior to.
So it's disclosed on the ballot materials, which is sufficient.
So it doesn't need to be stated here?
No.
Okay.
No. And that's a requirement that is in the governing documents, in the declaration, that you can walk in the vote.
Used to be quite common.
Yeah, not so now. It's only 1.
Okay, any other discussion? Call for a vote.
All in favor? Any opposed?
2.02, or 6.02, excuse me. Got ahead of myself.
6.02, we actually had a first reading last month. There were some input from the community about a couple of changes, and Pat helped implement some of those changes. So if it was just a spelling error or a grammatical change, we wouldn't send it back for a first reading, but we're requesting the board to reconsider this amended policy, and because of the changes, substantive changes that were made to the policy, we brought it back to the board for a first reading. Again, this went through the Rules and Regs Committee, who all voted in favor of bringing it to the full board for their consideration.
We have a motion.
Move to approve as amended on first reading.
A second. Discussion.
It wouldn't be as amended because this is a whole
New
new
one.
Okay.
vote, so it's as presented.
Move to present for a first reading.
Okay.
Discussion. Discussion. Okay, ask for call for a
All
vote.
right, this is a first reading again. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
7.04.
Do you want to cover this one?
Sure. Policy 7.04 is on the investment policy. And this was originally written at a time when our investments were much higher. So you'll notice in Roman numeral 2, section 3, you'll see the line out word is the board will retain, where we're changing it to may elect to retain. When we were at a much higher level, the investments were much more complex, and now that our investment level is much lower, we can handle it in-house. Dwayne can handle it. You'll see if you look on page 49 of your packet, what we've also done is we've added some clarity in section A and B as to the type of investment instrument that they can use, all of which are low risk. So certificates of deposit, U.S. Treasury bills, and money market accounts. In my experience, those are the ones that I feel most comfortable with. My personal investments, I tend to be a little bit more aggressive, but when it comes to POA investments, in my opinion, they should always be very conservative. No property owner is going to pat the board on the back for making additional money on their investments, but they will come after the board if they lose any principal. And then on page 50, you'll see that on item F, in the event that the board does elect to employ an investment company, in the event that the board does not elect to employ an investment company, the chief operating officer shall be responsible for investing the funds, and it keeps on going down, and it will be relegated to A and B only, meaning if we are doing the investments in-house, we are restricted to the lowest risk investments. If we use an outside company, we can get a little bit more aggressive. But if we're doing it in-house, we're basically restricting ourselves to CDs, treasury bills, and money markets, which I feel is very appropriate. I've never felt comfortable having more exotic ones. And every once in a while, in an industry publication, you'll read an article about an association getting way too aggressive with their investments and paying the price.
Do we want to specify when on an annual basis? Like what month?
We added that, and I think that was Pat's idea, that we do it on an annual basis. And what Dwayne was talking about is probably doing it in conjunction with the audit presentation. But we really didn't nail down a specific month, but I think our plan is to do it in conjunction with the audit presentation.
Do we want to say that?
We can if you'd like. You could approve the minutes, the motion as amended, and we can put in here on an annual basis in conjunction with the audit findings.
Okay.
Other discussion? Have we got a motion on that already?
No, we haven't had a motion.
We haven't got a motion on that yet? You want to call for a motion?
Motion to approve policy 7.04 as amended by Mary's suggestion in conjunction with the audit findings.
This is a first reading.
Pat, okay.
Second.
Mary, any discussion?
Becomes the first reading, so it'll be as amended. Question? Comment?
Mary, why do you think it needs to be nailed down like that?
Because if it isn't nailed down, it's not gonna happen, most likely.
Well, it's just, Mary, in the case of CDs, the terms are different. You know, one may be a 3-month CD that expires, and then you do a new one that's 6 months, so those don't always come due necessarily on an annual basis.
Oh, the report would just stipulate that we have so many CDs and what the maturity date and what their interest rate are. So they wouldn't need to mature at that time. We're just going to tell you where we hold them, what institution. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dwayne. We'd probably give you the institution, the dollar amount, the maturity date, and the interest rate.
And aren't those contained in the audit report, though?
Well, they look at that, but this would be a public thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
They look at everything.
And we would give you an updated one. So even though we would give you the report at the time of the audit findings, we wouldn't necessarily do it as of December 31 because you could get that in the audit. We would do it as of, we're probably getting the audit findings in March, we would do it at that point. And we can definitely, if it's a report that the board wishes to have on a more regular basis, we can absolutely do it more often than that.
No, I think annual is sufficient, just that we specify when.
Totally fine with the amended way of doing it.
Where exactly in here do you want to insert the wording, and what wording is it exactly?
I would put it,
Under G?
my
On page
suggestion,
40, 50.
under G, on an annual basis in conjunction with the audit findings, the chief operating and then can proceed forward from that point.
Did that change? Okay. Is that sufficient change? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I started writing very quickly to make sure I notated my
It's on
own
page
suggestion.
no, it's on page 50. It's under G in the blue,
Okay.
and it's additionally on an annual basis in conjunction with it, we'll say. The audit. We'll add that. Other discussion? Is that clarified, David? Mary, clarified? Okay.
All right, all in favor of accepting policy 7.04 as a first reading, as amended? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have 3 on the second reading next month. Community input meeting, go ahead.
So the community input meeting will be regarding the connector from Metfield Park to Blowing Springs Park. The meeting will take place on March 12th at 6:30 p.m. at Cooper Elementary School. So everybody is invited from our community to attend. Next up is an update on the Trafalgar Road fire. The city recently added some additional posts, some air quality results, and a letter that was being sent to the EPA. So we encourage everybody to continue to look at the city's webpage for that information. We also sent them the water results for Lake Brittany and Lake Ann, and they were gracious enough to post that information to their website. So encourage everybody to continue to go to the city's website to get information.
Okay. Anything else from the board for the good of the cause? If not, the community input meeting is Tuesday, March 12th at 6:30 at Cooper Elementary School. The next GM meeting is March 14th at 2:30 here in the boardroom. The Board of Directors work session is Thursday, March 21st at 9 a.m. in the boardroom, and it's an open meeting. Board of Directors for March is March 28th. The time has moved to 6 o'clock next month. 6 o'clock next month, so please sure you put that on your calendar and make that change. And that's also an open meeting. For April, it's April 11th for the GM meeting, April 18th for the board work session, and April 25th for the regular board meeting. Nothing else, we stand adjourned.